Welcome back, everyone, to part 2 of our Errors of the Copyist, Unintentional Errors, Textual Criticism in the Old and New Testament. Again, we're looking at Paul Wegner's book on textual criticism. I encourage you to get it if this topic interests you. It's a really easy read. So yesterday we looked at the first set of unintentional errors that the scribes made when they were copying by hand. And today we're going to look at the second set of unintentional errors, finish it up before we move into the intentional changes that the scribes made. So we're going to look at metathesis, the difference between fusion and fission, and then finally some wonderful Greek words, homoioteluton and homoioarchton. So metathesis, when two letters or words are reversed. So I do this all the time. I don't know if you do this when you type, but I will look back through and see that stupid little red squiggly line because I have hit the H and the E in the incorrect order in the. So te, everywhere. It's everywhere. Instead of writing the. So the H and the E are metathesized. They would say that they've swapped places. Well, this sort of stuff also happens when you copy by hand. So in Deuteronomy 31:1, the Masoretic text reads, Vayelech Moshe. And you can see here, again, you don't have to read Hebrew to catch this, but the Yud, Lamed, Kaf. This letter, this letter, this letter. They're in that order. Yud, Lamed, Kaf. However, at Qumran, we see Vav, Vav, Yud, Yud. This letter and this letter are the same. This is how it shows up when it's at the end of a word. These two letters are the same, and then there's your Lamed. Notice that the positions have been reversed. This is metathesis. They've been swapped. John 1:42 we think is another example of metathesis in the New Testament. So Yoanu and Yonah, but you notice here that Yoanu, the alpha and the nu are metathesized. It appears that what has happened is that after these metathesized, there was a deletion of the O and the U, the omicron and the upsilon on the end of the word, but you see that those letters have metathesized. They've reversed. Fusion. Two words are fused together. So if we had the sentence, the man held his hand out, like extended his hand, but we saw an error, or we saw a text that had the man held his hand out, like somebody gave him a photocopy of something as an example during a lecture, and he held it in his hand, the man held his hand out. That would be the fusion of two words together, erroneously. In Leviticus 16:8, we think we have an example of just this thing. So the phrase for Azazel, La Azazel, if you notice, you separate these two here, it becomes two different words. This doesn't really work in the context. However, in the context, this does work for the go to the departure. And so you separate the words here, and the phrase now makes sense. It looks like what has happened is that these two words got fused together erroneously. In Mark 10:40, instead of having al hois, but for whom, from Allah and hois, you have alois, which is for others. And so this is these two different words, these two separate words being fused together into an erroneous form. Now the opposite of this would be fission. So if a single word is erroneously divided into two. So we think we see this in Hosea 6:5. So the Masoretic text has this. This letter and this letter are the same letter. This one just shows up when it's at the end of the word. Notice in this form, it's on this word, and in this form, it's over here on this word. So this is moving a form over here, and the translation is very different, right? And your judgments, light goes forth. But here, and my judgment goes forth like light. Now, the interesting thing here is that we don't have actual Hebrew that says this. What we have is the Greek Septuagint reads this in the Greek. So what we think is the Vorlage, the text that the Septuagint, or that portion of the Septuagint was translated from, probably had this. It probably shifted over. Or at least that difference. And in Romans 7:14, instead of oidamen, we know, you can have, they do have oida men. On one hand, I know. Sorry, it's supposed to be on the one hand. See? Look at that. I did a tautography myself. It's supposed to be on the one hand. See? But I did that intentionally because this is a textual criticism video. Just kidding. So, you can see there that the words have been separated, or the word has been separated. Oida men going to oida space men. All right, the last two we're going to look at, homoiotoluton and arcton. These are the deletion of words, phrases, etc. because of similar beginnings or similar endings. So the I skips from one word with a similar ending to another word with a similar ending. So if we had the phrase, we run and have fun outside, the UN and the UN might draw your eye. If you were writing this and you wrote, we run, you read that, you looked down, you wrote, we run, and then you looked back up and you saw the UN here, you might write outside and delete all of this because your eye skipped from here to here. And so you would have, we run outside. So if you're a text critic and you see a bunch of manuscripts have this, and then you see one that has this, you might say to yourself, oh, okay, this is a homoiotoluton. We run outside, his eye skipped down here and he deleted these words. The other kind is where you have similar beginnings, the homoiarcton. So the example that I showed earlier, I like ice cream, I like dogs, I like coffee, I like music. These all have similar beginnings. So if your eye skips to the similar beginning, you might delete all the stuff that's in the middle. So a good example of this is this passage here in 1 Samuel. So if you look, again, if you don't know Greek, that's okay. You can just kind of look at the forms and notice their similarities. The Lord God of Israel. There it is again, the Lord God of Israel. And then, this is the important part. So you notice that already this phrase is repeated in this verse. But here, Israel, Israel, Israel. Well, it might be that if your eye skipped from this Israel down to this Israel, what you might do is delete all that text. So you might look at this and say, get to this form Israel, look down, write it, then look back up, and your eye comes here, and you keep writing, which would delete all of this text. And if you notice, this word here is the imperative give. So you have Israel, the beginning of the verse, ends in Israel. You have the word give. And if you notice, in the Masoretic text, that's exactly what happens. So here, and Saul said to the Lord God of Israel, all that text is gone. That's the word give. So you notice, beginning of the verse, same phrase that's used in the Septuagint, the same phrase that's used in the Greek. Then there was a whole bunch of text here that we don't see, and then the word give. And it's because the I skipped from Israel in the Hebrew down to Israel at the end of that long sentence and deleted everything. Okay. So we've looked at the unintentional errors that crept into the text because of the human nature of the scribes, right? And you can see that deletions or accidentally adding text or switching letters around, this is all stuff that you can anticipate happening, or hearing the wrong letter based on the wrong sound. Tomorrow, we're going to start looking at the intentional changes that were made by the scribes which led to variation in the various manuscripts. So stay tuned and keep with us here on our textual criticism journey of the Hebrew Bible and the Greek New Testament. Thanks.